First of all, I want to welcome everybody here tonight and thank you for coming out on a cool winter evening to help support the effort for the All Abilities Park in Clifton Forge. This is a project that you've been hearing about for a little bit over a year. We've been talking about it, working on it. It first came to light to town council by a private resident who has an autistic son. Made a presentation to town council that he felt like we needed something in Clifton Forge or out the Allegheny Highlands for special needs children and people of differing abilities, and that hence the name, the All Abilities Park. Our dream is for this to be able to reach out and bring people in of all age groups, grandparents bringing grandchildren, and the grandparents have a place to be comfortable and the children can play safely, and children of all abilities to be able to come together and play. First step we did was receive approval from council for this. Second step we did is to appoint Courtney Howard, the chairman of the Parks and Trails Committee, and give her this little ball that she's been running with and doing a great job, and I want to thank you for that and all the effort you put into it. And then she brought Travis in, and he's helped her greatly on the community garden aspect of the Century Trail, which is another part of this. But tonight we're here to talk about the All Abilities Park. We have our engineering firm from representatives from the Thrasher Engineering Group. This is Sam and this is Sarah. And they've done the renderings and come together with some preliminary presentation for you. And just want to introduce them, and I'm going to turn the floor over to them and let them do their thing. Thank you both for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chuck. Just kind of want to go over a few housekeeping items about the intent of what we're trying to do here tonight. So there is a sign-in sheet on the table there to the right of the entry door. If you guys missed that on the way in, I'd appreciate you signing it and just letting us know how many and who was here tonight. There's also these little baggies floating around. There's some on the sign-in table, and we've kind of scattered them around the room. Basically what we're asking you to do with these, there's 5 pink stickers and there's 1 orange sticker. And what you'll notice around the room are there are boards. The 3 boards in the back of the room and then the 3 boards in the windows are duplicates. And those are mostly focusing on different elements and components of the playground, whether it be different types of splash pad elements or different playground configurations or playground equipment that is being considered to be part of the concept. And what we want you to do with the pink stickers is put those on the elements that you like on those idea boards, and then the 3 concepts that we're going to talk about are here on these easels. And we want you to pick which concept you like the best with the orange sticker. So we'll just kind of start out by reviewing what's included in the park, what we're really trying to accomplish with this master planning exercise. And the thing I want to say from the very get-go is none of these are final. None of these are exactly how we're going to move forward with the construction of this park. The purpose of what we're doing tonight is to show you some different ideas, talk about what you like, what you don't like. We're here to hear your feedback and your opinion, so that's the purpose of this meeting. So we'll kind of go through these, and then Sarah, my colleague here, and Chuck and Courtney, we'll kind of try to space ourselves around the room so you guys can come and talk to us, give us your feedback, ask us questions, and hope that you'll get something out of being here tonight. We very much appreciate your presence. It means a lot to work on something and have people care about it and show up. So thank you all for being here. That says a lot. So the 3 concepts, and they're on the TVs. I know you all over on that side of the room will have a really tough time seeing that farthest TV, but again, they're on these boards here, concepts 1 through 3, and concepts 1 and 2 are relatively similar. What we're ultimately trying to do at Linden Park is renovate what's more the east side of the park. There's features like a baseball field, tennis courts, a basketball court, some existing restroom buildings, and a picnic shelter. We're not really trying to touch much with that part of the park. We're trying to utilize the mostly playground and green space areas of the park to incorporate and renovate it for this All Abilities Park. So when we say All Abilities Park, we are talking about different ages, different, if they have different disabilities, trying to incorporate something for everybody. And the different features we have on these idea boards, whether it's with the splash pad or the playground itself, there's a lot of sensory items, a lot of different elements that will allow for accessibility, whether it's a swing or zip line, different types of merry-go-round features, and even some of the play structures. You'll notice the 3 options that are kind of shown there. They're pretty traversable for somebody that has, you know, a disability and needs to be able to access it, whether it's in a wheelchair or walker, other types of issues that you may have to get from one end to the other. So when we're looking at this, it's not just about playground equipment. It's thinking about things like shade and other musical elements and exercise equipment. So some of the things that we're going to talk about in these concepts is how we could incorporate exercise equipment in more of kind of a fitness loop, where we have a small little walking trail around the perimeter of the park. We've also kind of tried to spend some time in these concepts figuring out how we deal with circulation and parking around the park. Right now there's kind of one dedicated gravel parking lot on the north side of the tennis courts. Other than that, it's kind of street parking, or as I understand, if the baseball field is in use, people are parking in the grass. So one of the things that kind of came to our mind when we first started working on this is you're going to create an attraction here. There's going to be more people here using this park if we add things like an inclusive playground or a splash pad. So what we have tried to do is designate several off-street parking areas, and kind of what we're doing is trying to create more of angled parking. So if most people are coming from the main area of Clifton Forge and they're kind of making a circle around the park, the angled parking is so that traffic would have the ability to drive all the way around the park and utilize that angled parking. There would still be some areas where you have street parking on the other side of the street from where those parking spaces are, which is another reason we employed angled parking instead of just your typical 90-degree parking, because you don't need as much backout room with angled parking spaces in that situation. So we're trying to preserve street parking where it exists, add off-street parking and designate that. And the other thing, obviously, with the intent of the park that we're constructing, we want to have several ADA parking spaces kind of scattered throughout at different entry points. Landscaping and screening is certainly a consideration. I'm sure there are some local residents here tonight, and what I want to hear, when I say local, I mean you live next to the park, and what I want to hear from you are just concerns about view sheds from your properties and the impact it might have. So I'd encourage you to come and talk to me about that. But as far as the overall program, so we'll have the splash pad and then the main playground area, and that main playground area will consist of a poured-in-place rubber surface. A lot of playgrounds you may have been to would be mulch or pea gravel, wood chips, different things that you, I'm sure, have seen. But with that inclusive and accessible nature we're trying to encourage, the poured-in-place rubber surface will be just like you're walking on a hard floor, but it's cushioned. So it serves as that fall protection. You know, if someone were to fall off of a swing or one of the play apparatuses, they would fall into that cushioned rubber surface instead of something hard like a concrete sidewalk. Trying to incorporate shade as far as you may have a bench as an example, but instead of just a bench sitting on a concrete pad, we could do benches that incorporate a cantilevered shade structure over top of it. We could use things like shade sails, which is kind of shown in an area of the splash pad. So in addition to the splash pad, you would have an area that's covered with shade sails and have picnic tables underneath of it. We'd also be adding a new restroom building that is kind of centralized in between the splash pad and the playground itself. And that is an opportunity. With these splash pads, you have to have a mechanical room or some sort of a mechanical space. It's a recirculating system, so it takes water in as it needs it, recirculates it, treats it through a series of pumps and filters, puts it back into the system, and then drains and just runs that cycle. So you have a mechanical room need anyway. One of the things that is certainly an issue, we have some restrooms that are kind of currently being used for the baseball field, but while they may be accessible, they're not ideal. There's not adult changing tables, or there's not family style, single stall use restrooms. So what we're trying to do with that building is incorporate some of those features into the park, accomplish that we'll have a mechanical room for the splash pad, and it's also an opportunity for signage and starting to kind of introduce an architectural component to the park. And so your building architectural component may match welcome signage for the park or informational signage, and the building itself may have a kiosk that is providing information on the area. And we talked about the Smith Creek Trail. That's obviously not connected geographically to this park, so that's an opportunity to have a map of other places people can visit in the Clifton Forge community or even regionally for parks and recreational opportunities. Landscaping and screening from the vehicular parking areas and travel pathways is something that we've kind of shown that we would put a fence on 3 sides of this park, running basically along where we have the parking spaces on the north, east, and south side. And that's really just trying to prevent, if a young child especially is using one of these playground areas, not having more of a direct line of path to where we're adding this vehicular parking or even worse into the street, and just kind of trying to create more of a barrier, not something that's obviously a tall security fence by any stretch, but more just kind of a lower ornamental fence, something that creates that hard barrier, and have designated entryways to get to the sidewalk where the vehicles and cars are going to be parked. There is some existing vegetation, larger trees that are there now that we're trying to save. Just from the intent of, everybody knows if you plant a tree, it's 10 to 20 years before it really looks like a tree that would be out there today. So trying to save some of that existing vegetation, but also think about what types of trees and shade can we plant as part of this project. And there, beyond the ornamental value, there may be even some sensory items associated with planting some fruit trees, or and we've got to be careful with that, because obviously that introduces a component of maintenance that could be difficult for the town. But some of those are thoughts that we're having that are more detailed in the weeds, final design thoughts. And as far as the other elements, that I really haven't talked about yet, it kind of gets down more into what types of elements on these boards, these idea boards. And I'll just grab one so I can kind of go through an example of what's on here. So this is all focused on playground equipment, and you have different features. These are all produced by the same manufacturer. I did that for consistency purposes, and we're not set on a manufacturer at this point. We could use any number of ones that make this accessible equipment. But like this first one as an example is, it's what they call a rock and raft, and it's a feature where it has an opening that's flush with the ramp beside of it. So you could roll a wheelchair in or have an easy accessible pathway into it, and then somebody can kind of rock it back and forth. There's different other sensory elements, like this is called the drum circle, and it's just something you can kind of come inside, and these different drum elements make different sounds. And then another element down here is called the sensory wave, and it's something you can kind of use your arms and slide through or crawl through, and there's different musical and other sound elements along the way. I mentioned the zip line. This is an accessible swing unit. But as opposed to it just being a normal swing where somebody would be pushed, this actually kind of goes, like a zip line, so it goes from one end to the other. So those are really the things we're wanting, to get your feedback on. Here's another one that they're just kind of like these vertical poles, and they have mallets, and you can hit them, and they'll make different kind of lower tone sounds. So again, going back to the stickers, we really want you all to look at these, evaluate what you think is nice, and put a sticker close to, in proximity, the elements that you like. And what that will ultimately inform is the orange circle or amoeba shape that's shown on these plans is really more of a placeholder. We know generally that's the size the playground should be to include a main play structure and a couple of other ancillary items. What we need feedback on is what does it really consist of, which is kind of more in the details of the different elements that are over there. I want this to be as informal as possible. I'm happy to take any immediate questions anybody has right now, but I would encourage you to just ask them more on a one-on-one basis. I want to make sure everybody has a chance to talk to us, so I'll be here as long as everybody else is here. I'm not going to leave. You're not going to miss a chance to say something. So I will take any immediate questions, and then if nobody has any, again, please use the sign-in sheet and pick up one of these baggies so you can put stickers on the boards.
So are we here to pick what layout, first of all, and then what features in that layout?
Yeah, so the pink stickers in these bags go on the idea boards. There's 5 of those, and then the orange sticker, you put one orange sticker on one of the concepts or layouts that you like the best. And understanding, as I said earlier, you know, there may be things even about the concept that you pick that you don't like. You may like something from one of the other concepts. So that's where I want to try to have one-on-one conversations with everybody and collect some of that feedback too.
I have a question.
Sure.
Is there a capacity level for the park as far as the number of people who can be there at one time, or the number of kids, or number of adults? Or have you all thought about that? Because once something like this new opens, then, you know, everybody's going to want to show up. So I know there's limited parking spaces, but is there a capacity limit?
There certainly is, and it's based on kind of a square footage from an occupancy standpoint. Like one of these main play structures is typically sized, like if it's age 5 to 12, it's typically sized for no more than like 30 to 40 users at a given time. But if you think about 30 to 40 users, those 30, 40 users probably have somebody else with them too. Hopefully some of them are riding in the same vehicle. So what we would do is take the square footage occupancy rating for the splash pad and the playground equipment itself and identify what is the parking count technically needed. And typically that's going to be one parking space per every 2 to 3 users. And I get the other caveat to that is certainly if the baseball field is in use, splash pad is in use, playground is in use, then it becomes, you know, there's going to be times where there certainly is overflow. So, yes.
So, as far as the flooring, is that going to be rubberized, or is that concrete, or?
The flooring on the playground?
Yes.
What we're kind of proposing right now is a rubberized, poured-in-place rubber surface.
Will it also have like a gate surrounded? So I've been to the playground in Richmond. It's called, it used to be called the Arc. I don't know if it's called, that's where kind of like, I had a great idea because I had brought this, presented it to the school system. And so we're trying to get like special equipment for our children as well. And so I was just curious if there was going to have like a gate and rubberized flooring. Like I know they have a gate like the one in Delville at the YMCA over there, where it's kind of like it's not easy for a student to get out of there, but it's like you know how to get in there, so that you just don't have anybody just running in and out, especially if it's somebody with disability or somebody that has autism or something like that. You don't want them just running out in the road, and that if it's going to be baseball there, and then you've got the splash pad, and then you've got the park, you don't want kids running out in the street. So will there be like some kind of gate protecting them as well, and then you can just easily access it to get out? Not like a fenced-in gate, but then I know like those metal gates that are like a parent knows how to do it, and an older child knows how to do it, but like somebody that's very small wouldn't know how to get out of that on their own to get out of the street.
Right now, the entire park has fencing on 3 sides, but there's no gates necessarily identified, and it's not a completely enclosed area either. So, you know, that's something that we have talked about. We haven't really arrived at any firm decisions. The only caveat to that is the splash pad itself will have to be fenced with gates.
Okay.
That's going to be a health department requirement for the permitting of that. It will have to be a completely fenced-in area. The playground itself, not necessarily, but certainly from the points you made, you know, safety is a concern.
It's like you're in a neighborhood, so you know everybody can't prevent. Oh, the dog got out, and then you get the dog goes in there, and then it starts messing everywhere. Or a dog goes attacks a kid, and the parent might have their that just becomes a liability, and you don't want a liability for the town. So that's why I just thought I'd ask that question.
Good question. Thank you.
And I like that idea too, because it should be all fenced in, because you never know, like she said, some dog got out, you know, we open the door somehow and it bites a kid, then where does the lawsuit go? And if you find the right lawyer, they're going with the deepest pockets.
The competing concern I have with that is wheelchair accessibility. If you could build in some type of an automatic gate so that somebody who's in a wheelchair doesn't have to wheel all the way around the park to get to a sidewalk to get to the playground, that's going to be important.
I have a question. I think more, because this is in my front yard, and Jerry's too, actually on the other side. But anyway, how much green space is that parking going to take on Park Street? Because it's not that wide now to get to. I'll never be able to park in front of my house again if this happens. That's for sure. So how much green space are you going to have to come up beside those basketball courts? Because you're going to have to cut back into that to provide for that parking.
Right now, what we're showing, the parking itself is encroaching only into the existing park space. We're not narrowing the street at all. We're not taking any of that away. But
But if I park in front of my house, I'm not, if people are going to get my car.
well, and that's what I.
Well, we don't know how.
That's the advantage to the angle as opposed to the straight in.
That's what we have looked at, is you still would have a clear drive lane behind the angled parking, even if somebody were parked there on the street. Because originally we had that as perpendicular parking and realized there's people parking on the street in a lot of these areas. So,
And that takes up more room.
and there are other things that the town could consider. And I'm not putting any words in the town's mouth at this point, but for a residential area like this where you're creating an attraction, there are going to certainly be times where it's busier than others. It may be that we need to look at how can we designate some residential parking during certain times of the day, so that only residents can use those particular
You
spaces.
take parking up on Park and Madison. They've already got it on Douglas. It's already on Douglas. But anyway, you're going to really cut into some of your existing park space for the facilities. I don't know how many feet that would take, but I'm sure you all.
An angled parking space like that's about 20 feet deep from front to back.
I have a question.
Yes.
The parking on Jefferson, I just have a concern. I've noticed on all three that they're pull-in. That's a main street with a lot of traffic. I just wonder if you guys have thought about maybe doing parallel instead of pulling in like that, because I think backing out is it's going to put everybody at risk for parking like that.
It's kind of dangerous.
The interesting thing about Jefferson versus the other streets is,
Jefferson's the most traveled.
like the cars that are, you can see some cars in the aerial image, they're actually not parked on the street. They're in like those gravel kind of pull-offs adjacent to the street. But certainly that's the main entry in and out of the park. And parallel parking, I mean, we would get probably a quarter of what we have there now. And again, that goes back to parking count, but I think that's where we have to continue to move stuff around and explore other off-street parking opportunities that we can create.
Yeah, I just think it's a risk for the people back out in Jefferson that you guys might want to consider. I think this whole concept is wonderful. I think it's much needed in our area. I just have a concern with that parking.
Should that be angled parking instead of straight in?
Well, it would be the same way, it'd still be backing down in Jefferson.
in Jefferson. And you live on Church Street, you had a four-way stop put in there because they fly on Church Street. It's the same concept on Jefferson Street.
I'm trying to help.
I know,
Pick and choose because a lot of people didn't like a stop sign.
but we live right there on that park, and during ball season and everything, we actually go one block up, so we don't have to go down into the traffic. All the kids are, because they're in and out of cars and dark, we go up one block to come around.
I mean, we want these kids safe. I love this concept.
Yeah, I
We
do
need
too.
this is great, but we want everybody safe. you
In
know.
actuality, Jefferson is probably more traveled than Church Street, to be honest, because we have so many people that live up there, so they're up and down the hill all the time.
Yeah.
So I do have concerns about the parking on Jefferson, but I know it does take away the parking spaces, but we don't want accidents all the time either. Will the pool section require someone to be there working 24/7, or is this just going to be, I mean, how is that going to be managed?
There's no standing water associated with the facility. Like, basically, this is just a concrete area that you have things that spray water out, or it comes out of the ground. There's no standing water, no lifeguard requirements, and they're automated. So, as an example, you can have the system set up to where maybe it runs from 8 to 5, and it won't turn on unless somebody hits an activator button on a pedestal, and then it'll run for whatever predetermined set of time, if that's 15 minutes, 25 minutes, and then it automatically shuts off. Any other questions?
I like the concept, but I just want to say that I'm concerned when it is ball season and we have all of that going on in addition to the park, and there's limited spaces, about the crowd, and that's why I asked about the capacity, because once something like, it's kind of like, you know, Clifton used to have a pool, and this is going to be all, it's going to be all inclusive, but, you know, this is going to be the new place for kids and everybody to come. And
Splash pad's gonna be
yeah,
a drawing.
yeah, it's going to
great
draw a lot of
drawing
people,
for-
so I'm just concerned about the amount of people that are going to be there and the amount of parking, and then if you have ball season on top of it, because ball season sometimes can even come up to my street. It just depends on how busy it is. So I think it can get really busy, and that's just a concern about the parking. I don't know that the parking capacity is going to be able to handle the capacity of the park.
And the other thing I would encourage everyone to think about is, what we're showing right now is kind of a program of things people were interested in when they went through a survey process. What we often arrive at in the design process is we're trying to fit too much stuff in one place. There could be other opportunities to do a splash pad at another property, and maybe this is not a right fit. So we're trying to meet kind of the design program and show how all this stuff might fit here, but certainly a solution could be, where else could we put a splash pad?
I fully support having all disabilities, because there needs to be something for people with special needs. I know that we're sometimes limited as to where we can even go with our day support program individuals. So I fully support it, but I just want to make sure that it's not going to create a lot of congestion and traffic.
I think if we look at the time of day that they're playing baseball versus the time of day the programs are operating, we're not directly overlapping. Are they?
I think you are, because
they?
I think
Okay.
when people come to baseball games, they bring their families with them.
Yeah.
And a lot of times they're on equipment when the baseball
Sometimes
games and
you'll
stuff are
get
going
crushed.
on. Yeah,
And
that's,
I'm planning on walking over there too, I know you are. Jerry's got his cabana shirt ready. So,
but I like having a green space as well, because I think you need that green space.
That's another question I have. Plans 1 and 2, I don't see, it looks like the green space is pretty much taken up. Plan 3 is the only one that looks like it has much green space. And there's not much green space up there, only between the tennis courts and that skating rink at present. And the skating rink would be where this green space is on number 3.
Correct.
And children do use that green space. They play football up there. I mean, and even adults sometimes will play football up there.
That's been part of our conversations as we started to develop Concept 3, is just having that unprogrammed space that people can pass frisbee or football or cornhole. You know, there's just lots of reasons we need green space.
With green space, my thought is, as many times as I've been up there, I haven't really seen the ballpark used that much, but when people aren't playing in the ballpark, that's a lot of green space that they can play their football or whatever, and that little bit of green space that people talk about. So the baseball area could be a dual purpose area.
And it has been. They play kickball up there, and the little children that play flag football, that's their football field.
Any other questions? Okay, we're going to kind of break then, and please feel free to come up and talk to us. Again, my name is Sam, that's Sarah. Feel free to talk to Chuck or Courtney as well. Just happy to hear more from you all. Thank you again for coming.